Recording in progress.
Everything but that. Thanks, sir. Huh?
Yeah. Just kidding, I have
No, it's not good. Everything is out of order. This pen company years ago, I ordered these so we get these all the time. And now they send me different variations of them. I'm like, yeah, but
Is it weird to write this square?
no, it's just probably about 30 of these and they're just different
And they're
designs.
each place.
Like enough already.
What's the free one? It'll be nice at first one.
Okay.
Good, yourself?
So, though we could still go another day. I do too. I like the way it looks. Sometimes it's sold out if you register late, but I would check on that.
No, I was looking at something here.
It's so quiet. No, I don't like it.
Good evening. I will now call the Auburn Study Session meeting for Monday, March 9th, 2026 to order. Tonight's study session meeting will be held both in person and virtually. Sean, can you please call roll?
Deputy Mayor Tracy Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Ammer.
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Here.
Councilmember Lott.
Here.
Councilmember Rakes.
Here.
Councilmember Sturgis.
Here.
Councilmember Clinton Taylor.
Here.
Fabulous. Now, Sean, do we have any agenda modifications this evening?
No, Chair. Chair, I'm sorry. There is a need for an executive session.
Okay, thank you. We have no announcements, reports, or presentations on tonight's agenda, so we will start off with our council discussion with a 2026 Community Development Look Ahead from Assistant Director Steve Sturza.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, council members. I am Steve Sturza, the Assistant Director of Community Development. With me, I have Alexandria Teague, the Planning Services Manager. We're here this evening to give you a community development work program for 2026. Most of these items that we're going to present tonight will go to Planning Commission for some sort of recommendation and then come to y'all later for adoption.
Okay, let's get started with critical areas regulations, or I'll use the term CAO. So the Growth Management Act requires that all cities and counties adopt development regulations to protect critical areas. As part of a follow-up action to our comprehensive plan update, we must review our critical areas regulations to ensure they're consistent with the best available science or best available scientific information. So we've been working through our critical area code update using a model ordinance from ecology for our wetlands and comments from the Department of Fish and Wildlife related to stream buffers and streams. We have hired a consultant, Facet, to help us update our critical areas regulations, particularly related to streams and stream buffers to ensure that they're not only meeting best available science, but also right-sized for the city of Auburn. The Planning Commission has reviewed our critical area standards at the September 16th, 2025 meeting, March 3rd, 2026 meeting, and a public hearing is to be held with Planning Commission on April 7th of this year. I anticipate that the critical areas regulations will come before council on April 13th, so next month. Right, moving on to battery energy storage systems, or BESS. Battery energy storage systems are battery systems that can provide reliable backup or storage of electricity generated on site or from a grid connection through single-family homes, for single-family homes, offices, and commercial activities. They range in size from a small battery pack mounted in a garage to charge an electric car to a grid substation. What is showing on your screen here is a grid substation. Recently, relatively recently, I'd say within the past couple of years, King County and Sumner adopted regulations for BESS, and more jurisdictions are likely to follow. The city does not yet have regulations for BESS in place. So the city adopted a moratorium for BESS on May 5th of 2025 under Ordinance 6978. The moratorium was extended on November 3rd, 2025 under Ordinance 6995, and this moratorium expires May 2nd of this year. So staff has prepared standards related to zoning districts to allow for BESS, associated land use approvals, supplemental standards, including the siting, construction, decommissioning, setbacks, noise, landscaping, the gambit for these systems. We have discussed BESS with Planning Commission at the regular meetings December 2nd, 2025, January 6th, 2026, January 3rd, 2026, and Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on April 7th. It is anticipated that these will also come before council on April 13th, next month. Okay, moving into some House bills. We have House Bill 1293, passed by state legislature in 2023. This requires cities and counties to have clear and objective development regulations governing the exterior of design of new development. So staff is in the process of updating the multifamily and mixed-use design standards, will now to be called the citywide design standards, to again provide for clear and objectives for planning and design of development projects. This includes the facade as well as the site design as well. This will provide a much-needed refresh to the architectural requirements for buildings since the standards were last updated in 2010. And these standards will apply to all apartments, that's development 6 units and up, mixed-use development, and commercial, except in the M1 and M2 zones. And I'll just add that we do allow for mixed-use development in the M1 zone, and that will be subject to the citywide design standards. It will not apply to interior renovations or alterations, and it will not apply to public buildings that, for, I guess in shorthand, are a city landmark, have some presence in the where they sit. Staff has presented the citywide design standards at Planning Commission on February 3rd, 2026. And then on February 4th, we actually held an open house at the Auburn Resource Center. It was from 4 to 6 p.m. The open house was pretty well attended, as open houses in Auburn go, for land use. Approximately 11 people signed in. We didn't receive any formal comments at the open house. We haven't received any written comments. We also sent these design standards to architects of record, essentially architects that have applied for or submitted for a permit with the city, and we haven't received any comments on those either. I'll just add that we have had consultant makers, their design and planning consulting firm, assist us with the update to these design standards. So staff presented the code update on March 3rd to Planning Commission, and it's anticipated, we have an associated code with the design standards update. That was presented to Planning Commission on March 3rd, and anticipated public hearing with City Council, with Planning Commission on April 7th. And these standards are anticipated to come before council on April 27th this year, so also next month. Now, the downtown design standards. Again, subject to the same House Bill 1293. Updating the downtown design standards will also provide a refresh, since these standards were last updated in 2007. These standards will apply to all development in the downtown except for single-family, middle housing, and projects consisting of interior renovations or alterations only. It will feature new storefront versus landscape frontages. The storefront frontage, which is essentially the building up to the street, abutting the sidewalk, will be along that our traditional main street. So it's on the map, it's the area with the two heavy red lines. And then we'll allow for the landscape frontages. That's more of a setback where the building is set back and you have landscaping to kind of soften the facade. And that's proposed to be allowed on the blue double striped streets. And then the red and yellow, those are new pedestrian streets per the recently adopted sub-area plan, and those will also feature a landscaped frontage. These design standards will follow the same timeline as are following the same timeline as the citywide design standards. We also held an open house for these standards on April 11th in City Council chambers from 4 to 6 p.m. This was even better attended. We had approximately 20 people sign in. And we didn't receive any formal comments at the open house or written comments. We had a lot of good discussion at the open house, but not any formal written comments. It's anticipated that these will also come before council on April 27th of this year. Okay, something completely different, non-conforming standards. This update really comes from community feedback during the downtown sub-area process, as well as kind of separate independent conversations with local businesses. Very quickly, non-conforming means a use or structure that no longer conforms to the standards of the zoning district in which it was situated. And a legal non-conforming use is one that was legally established, means it was permitted prior to becoming non-conforming. So essentially it could be, for example, you had a good example. You have a single-family residence in an area that's in an area now zoned heavy commercial. So that single-family residence is considered non-conforming. Well, essentially, probably legal non-conforming because it's probably got a building permit and that stuff. So, and there's various reasons as to why something becomes non-conforming. Typically, it's standards change or the zoning changes. So, the non-conforming chapter is important because it allows for the continuance and maintenance of legally established non-conforming uses. Standards and provisions, well, sorry, let me forget that part. So, this update to these standards is intended to provide more flexibility and more relief from the non-conforming standards. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Senate Bill 5148. This is related to minimum parking requirements. So the state is setting new parking minimums, essentially prescribing parking minimums. The minimums are quickly shown here on screen. The 0 for a range of uses includes 0 for new senior housing, new affordable housing, commercial uses under 3,000 square feet, residences under 12,000 square feet, childcare centers, ground level residential, that's for mixed use, and change of use within an existing building. Well, and the reasoning is the legislature states is that on-site parking could drive up the cost of development, and particularly housing, and discourages walking and multimodal transit usage. So the deadline for compliance is January of 2027, and I anticipate this code update coming before council in the fall. Okay. Moving on to another Senate bill. This is two Senate bills, actually. Senate Bill 5509, the siting of child care centers, and 5666 related to child care centers in existing buildings. So, per Senate Bill 5509, cities and towns must allow for child care centers and the conversion of existing buildings for use as child care centers as an outright permitted use in all zones except industrial zones and open space zones. Cities, though, we may impose reasonable restrictions, including where pickup and drop-off areas are located, but based on the previous Senate bill, we cannot require any additional parking, or the parking requirement is 0. The deadline to implement the Senate bill, or these Senate bills, is July 27th of 2027, and I anticipate this also being brought to council sometime this summer. All right, moving on to another topic. This is corner stores, or neighborhood commercial. So it's not related to a state mandate yet, but it is a pretty hot topic right now in the planning community. The Municipal Research and Services Center, or MRSC, state that corner stores were very popular in the mid-20th century and were a reliable source for daily essentials. They were also gathering places that community members could access by bike and walking, and it also support small businesses. So we are looking at amending the zoning code to allow for neighborhood commercial. We will also need to examine appropriate standards related to setbacks, building height, maximum size of business, and perhaps things like noise screening. But we can work through that, especially since there are other jurisdictions that are considering these standards. I understand that Renton is actually working on this now. And I'm not sure when they're going to have their first draft. There's a staff member who's on their planning commission, so he told me that Renton is working on this now. So I'm excited to see what Renton pulls together, so we can perhaps borrow that. But I anticipate this coming to councils also sometime this summer. Okay. Moving on to House Bill 1757. This House bill essentially states that cities and towns must allow up to 50% more units than what is allowed even in code of the underlying zone if the new units are entirely within an existing building envelope. It's very similar to something we passed last year that was related to apartments and mixed use. This is expanding it for more types of residential uses, but essentially it's allowing for more units within an existing building envelope. We can also require no new parking requirements for the new units. The deadline to adopt this House bill is June of this year, and I anticipate this coming to council at the end of May. Okay, moving on to live, work, live. This is actually an existing use in city code. Live, work, and work, live means a housing unit and working space that are designed or structurally modified to accommodate joint residential and commercial occupancy. Essentially, live, work, and work, live, they're kind of the same thing, whereas live, there's more of living area in that building, and work, there's more working area in that building or that unit. They are currently allowed in commercial and industrial zones as part of a mixed-use development. We don't have set standards yet as to what a threshold for when you cross over to live, work, and work, live. So essentially, that's what we're working on this year. And I also anticipate these standards being brought to council sometime this summer.
All right. I want to briefly touch on the success of some of the recent development agreements that we've had here at the city, like Copper Gate at the north end, Copper Creek on Lee Hill in the Bridges neighborhood, and the IRG project over at GSA. We want to make an effort to refresh the city's development agreement code The development agreement is simply a voluntary contract between the city and a property owner. It's not a permit. It lays out what each side is responsible for, ensures clarity on project standards, and gives the developer certainty that the rules won't change during the process. Under state law, we can use these agreements to address project impacts and the timing of public improvements. Once the development agreements are signed, they're legally binding for both parties, and they carry forward even if the property changes hands or we annex it into the city. Our goal with the code update is to make it clear where the city can be flexible and where we cannot be flexible. This helps ensure transparency, consistency, and good outcomes for both the city and the developer. Zoning code and map cleanups. We also need to do some general cleanup of the city's zoning code and zoning map. Over time, the code is amended and parcels are developed or annexed, so a few inconsistencies or outdated references are naturally going to occur. This cleanup effort addresses those issues by correcting things like incorrect citations, unclear standards, and parcels where the zoning and land use designations don't match. These updates don't change policy direction. They simply ensure code is accurate, consistent, and easy to apply. The work also incorporates cleanup items identified by city staff, since they're in it all the time, some of which these inconsistencies were created during several of those significant updates we did that were required by changes in state legislation. Overall, it's a housekeeping step that keeps our zoning code clear, current, and ready to support development and implementation of state requirements.
Okay, annual amendments. Per RCW 3670, our comprehensive plan and the land use map could only be amended once per year. And each year, we examine our plan and our land use map for any necessary changes. As Steve mentioned, we're in the zoning code, we're also in our elements, and if we find changes that need to be updated, we flag those to be updated as part of the annual amendments. Most of our annual amendments are city initiated. However, we do have a process for privately initiated amendments. The deadline is June 12th of this year. And our typical city initiated amendments typically include the school capital facilities plans and impact fees. There's two of them. And our city's capital facilities plan.
So new state law authorizes 8-year multifamily tax exemptions, MFTE, to encourage development or multifamily housing, and 12 and 20-year exemptions to encourage development of affordable housing. We're working on code language to reflect the state program and looking to utilize the MFT program as a possible way to incentivize landlords to invest in their own commercial spaces. We also want to look into expanding the MFTE program as eligible in other areas of the city since it's currently only available in the downtown area. For economic development, they're pulling together a proposal for the Advance, Recover, Construction, or ARC program. The program will focus on helping our local businesses navigate growth, the health and safety changes needed to be made, specific damage recovery options, and recruitment for our empty shell spaces. The idea is to incentivize empty spaces downtown to be filled based on feedback we've received from the community. Community development is not ready to share details yet, but ECDev will be back to explain more detail later in the year. I do want to mention that this program will be dependent on funding. I'm going to give a quick update on the Copper Gate development, which is up at the north end of the city, south of 277th between Auburn Way North and I Street. The development team, which is now led by Vector Development, they've submitted applications for both a zoning code amendment and an EIS addendum for the north half of the site. At the end of February, Alex actually issued a determination of completeness for those applications, which means that they're ready for formal review. The applicant, they're preparing, but actually they just submitted it to us today, a development agreement amendment that we'll get an opportunity to peruse through here pretty soon. The agreement amendment will outline details like project timing, construction sequencing, and other potential public improvements that aren't already constructed or required by code. Yeah, I hope to bring that draft to you all soon, along with any of those zoning text amendments. And then finally is the Stuck River Road and Mount Rainier Vista Planned Environmental Review. This is the 876-acre area in southern Auburn, the gravel pit, which is planned for community development, housing, employment, parks, and utilities. In late October of 2025, the city issued a determination of significance and notice of scoping for the Planned Action Environmental Impact Statement, EIS. The scoping period, which has already ran from November 1st all the way till December 15th, included 2 public scoping meetings to gather input on key issues and alternatives to be studied. Both of those meetings were really well attended, with 30+ people at each of those. They were at the school right in the area, which I think helped immensely. We received comments that were verbally shared, written down. They're going to take all those comments and put them in an EIS scoping memo, and that'll be included in the draft EIS, which we are hoping to bring forward in fall of 2026. I want to note that we do plan on doing some periodic check-ins with City Council just to keep you all updated on what's going on with that. Ultimately, the goal is to choose the preferred alternative and also adopt a planned action ordinance in the summer of 2027 with the hopes of, as soon as that's adopted, construction is going to commence and is probably going to go on for 20+ years. With that, thank you for listening to our anticipated program for the year.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, so one of the things I was curious about with the design standards, at least looking at some of the, pictures on the deck, we have extreme heat in parts of the community that happen seasonally and, for all predictions could be getting worse. Have we incorporated any passive design elements, like over windows to provide shade on south sides of buildings so that we're not having those buildings have to spend more energy to keep, parts of the building cool?
Not necessarily. I think that falls more under the IBC or the IRC for building design. We did have a section of the design standards for green design, but I think the building code is now up to speed where everything that was in that green design they have to do now. So I'm not sure. So the short answer is no, because I think the building code speaks to energy efficiency and preparing for things like heat events and things of that nature. But I can always talk with our building official and confirm that. But that was my understanding.
Okay. If it's possible, when you follow up on that, if you could just give me an update.
Yeah, we will. We talk through our Jason Crum about providing information.
I think essentially give the council an update on that. That'd be great.
Yes, and as part of, we can bring that back as part of, because we're going to have a discussion, the planner tasked with the design standards. We can address that question during that presentation.
Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So back on the, regarding the corner stores, when you said you'll bring a proposal to recommend allowing corner stores in residential, and then also you'll be developing the standards. Will your recommendation for the standards be within that proposal, or will it be a proposal to say, yes, we want to allow this, and then you would go and build the standards of what that would look like?
No, it would be more that we'll bring forward draft code.
Okay.
Because we'll take draft code to planning commission, they'll provide a formal recommendation, and then we'll bring that packet forward to council.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure how that works, so thank you. Council, any more questions? Councilmember Baldwin?
Yeah, I'm curious, looking at the map of the Coppergate area that was shown on the, I forget which slide that was. One of the last slides that was in there. And, in recent time, my understanding was there was a lot of water covering some of that area due to the flooding events that had happened back previously. So if we're planning future development here, what mitigation are we looking at to ensure that those development plans are safe and appropriate for residents?
They do need to meet our floodplain code. The original developer actually went through and placed fill on the majority of that site. And based on where the fill was, it worked exactly how they planned it to. So the areas that were still mapped in the floodplain did have water on them, the rest do not. So everything's elevated out, and then all the buildings will have to be elevated 1 foot or 2 foot, depending on the type of facility they put out there.
Any more questions? Councilmember Lott?
Yeah, the density increase that you had mentioned for HB 1757, you mentioned that as within an envelope. I'm assuming envelope is existing structure on the
Yes,
property.
sorry.
If the property has more than one structure, can it be either or structure?
That's a good question.
I'm thinking of like detached garages.
Oh, no, it can't be within accessory structures. It would have to be
Okay.
within the main structure.
It would have to be within the main, okay.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yeah, I think on the first slide where we were looking at critical areas, you had made mention that you're taking into account information, that's based on science from Department of Fish and Wildlife and other groups. In that, do we have, as part of our critical areas standards, I don't know if it would be in this section or others, do we have any guidance within our policies today as far as protecting tree canopy within the city?
So the short answer is no, but I have a long answer for you.
Okay.
So we have a climate element and we have a climate implementation plan. And in the climate implementation plan, it talks about doing a tree canopy study for the city of Auburn. We haven't been able to undertake that yet. It's gonna require time, and for these past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of House bills, a lot of Senate bills. So that is something we want to look into. It's going to be a balancing act between development and allowing for development and also ensuring tree canopy. It'll be a lot of, I imagine, restoring tree canopy, especially in the downtown proper where I've seen heat maps where it does get hot. But related to the critical areas code, no, not necessarily. It's tree retention within regulated critical areas. That's like streams, stream buffers, wetland buffers. So trees are to be retained within a critical area. So, but outside of a critical area, we have landscaping standards. We have required landscaping areas for commercial development, for some residential development, but we don't have any master plan for tree canopy at this time.
It sounds like we're hoping to at some point.
At some point in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that both from the standpoint of being able to continue to have natural cooling within the city, so being able to preserve the canopy that we have, even if it's restored after, being moved around. And then with the critical areas for our rivers and the fish in our rivers, without canopy over those critical areas, the water temperatures heat up and it's very bad for the rivers, basically.
There is a new provision that will require revegetation of stream buffers and wetland buffers. It's similar to a standard, to other neighboring jurisdictions, we took it from Burien, because they in their code. And that seemed to be a lot of jurisdictions that seem to be going that route, so.
Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to get a little more clarity on the MFT. So you mentioned that we're gonna be updating the city code to that. Did I hear you say that's only available right now in the downtown corridor?
Yeah.
Is that pretty standard as far as how folks are using that currently right now? I think you mentioned it may be available in other areas at some point, but right now, is it mainly where you're seeing most folks using that in downtown corridors?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that you want to use it in areas where you're trying to encourage growth, so that's why we want to look at it, implementing it in other areas.
Okay,
My question, oh, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
My question is along the lines of the design standards in downtown. We had 2 open houses, as you had mentioned. Do we have any local businesses come and provide input on what they'd like to see within those design standards?
Yes, there were businesses in attendance, but I don't have any like direct feedback from local businesses. We are planning to go to the BIA on this month, Thursday.
Okay.
But no real like specific feedback on anything on the design standards in town.
Thank you. Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you. Comment and question is, first off, thank you so much for the feedback on the non-conforming standards, and I know that was a big hot topic that people wanted follow-up on, and so thanks for coming back with that, and it's exciting to hear the follow-up on the MFTs and the incentives and the development agreements, so thank you, or developer agreements, so thank you. When you mention, I think now all of us have gone out to go see the property and the tour of the Mount Rainier Vista area. And thank you for the leadership and the way you're engaging with the community on that. With the open house for the draft EIS, how does that get noticed to everybody? Is that just through mail, or how does the community know about that?
Well, it's all of the above. We have a project website on Speak Up Auburn for it, and we did a mailing.
Okay,
And
cool.
it was pretty successful with the mailing. What else do we do?
We said for the next steps is the formal open house for the DEIS. So I guess how's that get noticed? Sorry. Is that the website?
Yes, there are actually specific requirements for noticing for an EIS, for DIS. I don't remember what those are. It probably includes the newspaper for most of our notices. We will use the project website again. We will do direct mailings.
I think there's some party of records in there too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think those are people that are reaching out to the
Very
neighbors. That has been very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Rakes.
I have a couple questions on the multifamily tax exemption. So the new state law is 8, 12, and 20 years. What was it before? And for the incentives, can you give some kind of example? Because it's been very hard to rent those because of the tax exemptions.
Sorry, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'll have to look into that.
Yes, they tell us that they
I think we only have one
talking about the
property owner that's
Yeah.
taking advantage of the MFTE.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So,
There's only one property owner in the downtown area that I think currently has an MFTE program with the city that has either already expired or is going to expire very soon.
Expired.
Okay.
so the other two. Okay. And I was just speaking of the bottom floor.
Oh.
Council, any more questions? Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, with regard to the best facility language that we were looking at there, have we reached out to any of the cities that have had battery energy storage facilities and have had events or, the fires that have happened?
Oh, no, not the jurisdictions that have had the fires. We have been talking with local jurisdictions or working taking code from like King County and City of Sumner. I'll say to the fires, it's my understanding that those were based on older technology. Not to say that thermal runaway couldn't happen again, but it's my understanding that was based on older technology. So the likelihood of that is low, but that's why we have the zoning development standards like siting, construction, decommissioning, setbacks, even landscaping, what type of landscaping can be put around these to, if anything does happen, to contain or as much as you can. So no, but the short answer is no, we didn't reach out to the jurisdictions that have had fires.
We've been talking a lot with Valley Regional Fire Authority
Yes.
to make sure they're comfortable with the
Yes.
code we're pushing forward
Thank
as
you.
well.
Councilmember Hammer?
Oh.
Oh, you don't have it?
No, I just want to say thank you for all the work with the code change. Probably you'll, until next year, then you get busy. Sorry. So we appreciate that you keep the planning commissioner busy. You're busy, guys. We'll see you more often. But this is shorter time, so for the legislative. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask a question, then we'll go back to you real quick. So the corner stores, I know Seattle is notorious for a lot of that corner stores. Have we talked with the ECDev people in Seattle on how that's working out for them, if there's been success, and any other jurisdictions that have corner stores?
No, not yet, not yet. This is still something we're looking into. I know Tacoma has corner stores that are popular, Seattle, no, not yet.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Thank you. The reason I ask about, have you talked to any of the jurisdictions where there have been negative events with the energy storage facilities is I'm a firm believer in lessons learned, in that if those communities have already gone through the reality of it happening or where it can go wrong, that they probably have any number of items that they've probably identified as far as going back and doing, post-event assessments, lessons learned, and I would think that that would be a wealth of information that we could put into what we're bringing together in this space, because from just a quick search, it seems like at least this item indicates that there have been 26 battery fires in the U.S. from 2012 to 2025, with 22 having occurred since 2019. So if the technology, it was happening when it was older, it seems to indicate that some of these events are still happening in more recent years. And so with that, I think just from a diligence perspective, a couple phone calls to communities where they have had newer facilities that have had events would be appropriate.
Council, any more questions? Councilmember Lott?
Yeah, I had a quick question about the design standards update and existing businesses, and what potentially for an existing business, what they would do that would trigger a design standard update where they'd be required to meet the new design code, and how that would work. If they were to replace doors, add windows, and at what points do they trigger an event where they can't afford it, but they want to do something?
So there are thresholds to the design standards. I don't remember what those are in front of me. But if there's an existing business, they want to update paint or change outdoors, no, that's not necessarily enough of a trigger for design standard, for a full design standards. Even today, we have design standards now. We have them in place with, and if a business wants to do some sort of facade improvement based on the level of that facade improvement, the cost of that facade improvement, they'll either trigger a design review or they won't. I don't have the new thresholds in front of me either, but we do work with businesses, we do work with development, but it's not really changing anything from when the design standards are for a business today. If a business downtown subject to design standards, they'll be subject to the new design standards. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have those thresholds in front of me. I can't remember, and I won't do it justice, so I can't remember the applicability or the thresholds for when design review is required. But Like, for example, the, what is it called, Wayland Arms? It's the building down the street, disoriented, it's orange and blue. They did a full facade update on half of the building. They did a design review. But we call it design review light because they weren't required to do, like the full meal deal of design, like putting on like parapets and different treatments on the top of the building. We worked with the existing framework and structure of the building. So it's what we would do now. It's what we would do under the new design standards.
I'll share that I did speak with a couple businesses that have existing buildings that honed in on that part.
Oh, yeah.
And there seemed to be no concerns about the thresholds that we put in there. They seemed to think those were reasonable, that those were verbally shared with me.
At the open house on the Resource Center?
Yeah, the Resource Center and here.
Councilmember Rakes.
On your corner stores, I have just a couple questions. Do you actually mean corner, or can they be anywhere in the residential area?
They probably could be anywhere in the,
Okay.
but that's something I haven't looked at yet, whether or not they'll be like that corner piece
Yes.
truly, or they'll just be like mid-block.
Okay, and then is there any, can it be any kind of small business?
I haven't really
For
gotten.
instance, like we have a flower shop that's in a neighborhood
Oh.
right now.
Probably. I mean, one thing we'll look at is like the externalities. You know, is it going to be a doggy daycare next in the middle of houses versus like a flower shop, which would probably have less externalities on the adjoining, the neighboring or abutting uses. So
Okay.
that's something we'll look at. Yes.
Okay.
I'm a little concerned, or I shouldn't say concerned, I guess I'm hesitant on the parking requirements. It gives me reason for pause in the fact that that is really pulling away from a lot of residential, I mean, two-car families, right? And you get a half a parking space for a brand-new home. Are we concerned about the capacity to street parking? How are we going to navigate that, I guess, is what we're looking at here.
Are we concerned about it?
Well,
Yes.
of course, yeah.
As far as what's going to be built, I know for master builders, what they've shared is they don't want to build a product that people aren't going to buy,
Right.
and having parking spots is important to a lot of people, so I think we do have to rely a lot on builders building something that they're gonna be able to sell.
Sure. I guess the second piece to that, though, is what are we looking, I mean, street capacity is going to be difficult, and how are we going to navigate that? Councilmember Rakes.
I just want to clarify something. Isn't that the state standards? We can't do anything about that. We have to go with what they say. So we don't have a choice.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I agree about the risks that I think are there, especially in communities that are more suburban and have a lot more commuters as far as our residents. If there was ever an opportunity to revisit that state bill, maybe in a future legislative session, to be able to look at making modifications or recommendations to say, maybe that works if there's a certain proximity to major transit centers, but not otherwise.
I will share, I think it was Bothell. Do you remember the other municipality?
Everett?
There's been a few municipalities that have just gotten rid of
Spokane.
minimum altogether, and they have said that it's gone positively so far. I mean, we're going to need time to find out for sure, but they said so far things are going well.
Okay.
Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. I think what was said about the master builders, because we did have that concern and we meet with them quarterly. And I did feel a little better coming out of there when they said that they wouldn't build a product that isn't going to get purchased. Because their goal is to make money off of the units that they're building. So we will have to hold out some hope, because at this point, and we have worked with the state legislature, believe it or not, some of the language was even worse than what it came out with at the end. but we will continue to work with the state legislature to try and fix anything that is broken. The concern though, and we did ask them not to do a whole lot with housing for a while and let us just get caught up with all of the legislation that's been in place for the last couple of years. We don't even know how any of it's going to work yet because we haven't had a chance to catch our breath with making all of the updates. And some of those updates were done at a time when our team was doing the comp plan update, which, you know, every 10 years there is a full new comp plan, and they don't always care. Just say that.
Councilmember Lott?
Oh, I've just got the conversations I've had with that about that restricted parking has been that there's an expectation because of the upward trend of electric alternative vehicles, you know, the little e-bikes and that. There's an expectation that there's a good part of the population that only will need one car and that they will use alternative transportation as their other modes of transportation, and there'll be a reduced requirement. That's kind of the expectation, the hope from what they've seen in the trend lines from using, and you see them everywhere. And so I think that was, you know, if anything here is to sort of, in an offside, encourage it. I think that was part of the expectation.
Council members, any more questions? Councilmember Baldwin?
Just a last comment. On the sort of preview that you gave us for the ARC, the Advanced Recover Construct Program, I don't know when you're going to be ready to bring that forward, but based on the bullets, very excited that there's some work taking place there and can't wait for that to come back. So glad you guys are working on it and working on so much here that you have managed to streamline for us. So thank you.
Last round. Any more questions, Council? Fabulous. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much. So this is the section on the agenda where council can share topics of interest and or reports on special focus area matters. Reports should be limited to 5 minutes. We'll start with Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you. Just as a quick reminder, that we haven't had any updates from our last SFA meeting. And so just for what's coming ahead is that Julie will be starting to give a forward view or a look back, and she does that consistently now, but more of including more projects from Parks and Rec in future count study sessions where Muni Services is on the agenda, as well as the overview and the recommendation from the study for the police station. That'll be coming through the public works side, not through Muni Services, in partnership with Chief, of course. And then for the next Muni Services meeting, we'll be looking to have an update on our officer wellness design program.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, just brief, we met with our special focus group. There was some discussion about the upcoming grant cycle that's going to be coming out for 2027. Talked a little bit about moving forward with, or the wanting to move forward with continuing to build out the center. So the Human Services Department is going to give us a presentation in our next meeting, and we talked about various programmings that we're interested in looking more at in terms of things like for youth in the community, some other programs around housing, et cetera. Some more presentations to come, but that was our first meeting in a few months. So it was good just to kind of get in a room with everybody and hear some updates, because there's been some changes in the department, as we know, and so looking forward to our next meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Lott.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Just getting ready for NLC.
Thanks. Councilmember Riggs.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Amber.
I will add for what Councilmember Taylor, we had the meeting Monday. The numbers, they were able to get contact with many people, homeless, hundreds, and they were, when we had the meeting, it was March 2nd, they housed 11 people. That's the numbers.
So the work continues.
Wonderful. Okay, and then my report is on March 2nd. Vice Chair Baldwin and myself met with Public Works Director Ingrid Galb and Julie Kruger for Parks and Jason Crum from ECD. We talked a little bit about Community Development Look Ahead, which we saw today, an opportunity for a grant for the next airport hangar enclosure project, the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan update, and the downtown and citywide design standards for development. Again, all that we saw today. With that, we do have an executive session, so the City Council will adjourn into executive session per RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss legal counsel representing the city, representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in adverse legal or financial consequences to the agency. The length of the time for the executive session is 10 minutes. We will resume the meeting at 6:33. And in addition to City Council, Mayor Backus, City Attorney Jason Whalen, and Public Works Director Ingrid Galb will be required to attend. There will be no action following the session.
So No extending.
Feels better in here.
I love this room, became so cold.
It's chilly.
Oh, good.
Chilly, chilly, chilly.
Okay. I call this meeting back to order. With that being said, with there no more items